COVID-19 pandemic. A Channel 5 special is brought to you by the Belize Bank Limited, Santiago Castillo Limited, Universal Hardware, and Holy Redeemer Credit Union.
Good evening and welcome to another in the series of Uncovering COVID-19, a Channel 5 special. I am your host, William Neal, and thank you for joining us tonight. Our panel tonight will feature Dr. Fernando Cuellar, internist, Belize Medical Associate, Mark Lizarraga, Senator for Private Sector, Jenny Lovell, psychotherapist. Panelists, good night and welcome to the show.
Good night, William.
Before we get into the show, I just want your initial thoughts based on what has happened this week, not in much detail, but just your thoughts as to where we are with our management when it comes to COVID-19. Dr. Cuellar?
Definitely we are blessed. We are blessed. And for saying a good Creole language with a God pitney. With a God pitney so far, we've had our successes with hurricanes and other disasters and the like. And so COVID definitely has not hurted us as much as other countries now. It's going on now to 3 weeks and we have not had a new positive case. And there are a number of factors I would put forward that why that is happening. But I'm sure that there's some, if there's any, and somebody might quarrel against me to say there might be some divine intervention here for us not to be having more cases. We must be grateful and thankful that we have not had any new positive cases, we have not had any further deaths, and we are now thinking about quote-unquote reopening our country, which I'm sure that my other colleagues will have many inputs to say there. Now, but on the medical side, our health system has not been overwhelmed as we see in other countries, and that we are pretty thankful for.
Thank you, Fernando. Mark?
William, good night, and good night, Belize. And if I may be given this moment of privilege, I'd like to say Labor Day best wishes to everyone in this country. I'd like to recognize and honor everyone that works or have worked in Belize, from the mothers to the homekeepers to the helpers, my workers, but certainly everyone that contributes to the task of keeping our homes, our businesses, our public and private institutions, and our country running. Blessed Labor Day. Thank God for the doctors and our frontline team. Thank you, Doc. But William, yes, we're blessed. We're truly blessed. And when one doctor tell you have to pray and say, thank God, boy, you listen to the doctor because he knows what he's saying. So in many ways, we've dodged a big bullet. It could have been the first salvo. As we know, in other parts of the world, there have been second waves and third waves. And I think by virtue of that, we've seen this week that the state of emergency has been extended in preparation, no? Just to keep us on that prepared place, So interesting things this week. We've tried to as well open up the economy. So I think, we've been blessed. And now we need to look at how do we continue to reopen if possible and to what extent.
All right. Thank you very much, Mark. Jenny?
Hi, good evening. I guess for me, I just listened to, I've been listening to the radio and listening to how frustrated and stressed out people are. And Labor Day, a lot of people are not working. And just to say, just to, one, wish them happy Labor Day, and two, ask folks to do all the things that we've talked about to minimize stress in their lives, because we have to gear up for 30 more days. We have no control over it, and so we have to accept it and gear up.
Well, very good words there, Jenny. Obviously, we'll have to decide how we'll move forward and whether the management of the COVID crisis going forward is strategy or luck or just good blessings from above. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll dig a little deeper. Don't go anywhere. Uncovering COVID-19, a Channel 5 special, continues after these messages.
Save. The credit union way.
Member owners are encouraged to save regularly, borrow wisely, and repay promptly.
No use keeping the money in your pocket. Soon as you turn wrong, you know you ain't got it. So as money goes from hand to hand, give your cash to the umbrella man. I telling you, save. The credit union way. Save. It will make you rich someday.
Stronger, faster, comfortable, affordable, empowered by the trusted Cummins ISF 2.8-liter turbo diesel engine. We change the way the game is played. The new Photon tunneling truck and View CS2 van. Available at Universal Hardware. Photon, the game changer is here.
With over 100 years of service excellence in Belize, the Belize Bank Limited recognizes the importance of leading the way as we enter into this fast-growing technological world. Our Belize Bank mobile banking app virtually places a number of banking capabilities in the palm of our customers' hands, anytime, anywhere, through the use of their Android or iOS devices. Bank, delivering a convenient and enhanced banking experience to meet the demands of our customers' digital lifestyle. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
And welcome back to Uncovering COVID-19 at Channel 5 Special. I'm your host, William Neal, and we have our panelists, Dr. Fernando Cuellar, Mark Lizarraga, and Jenny Lovell. Let's get right into the thick of things. I want to start off by talking about how long it has been. 17 days, and we have no new cases. Of course, we have a wide range of reactions to that news. But let's start off with you as our panelists to say exactly, from the medical perspective, Dr. Cuellar.
My comment on now having 17 or 18 days without a positive new case, that's an excellent thing. I think that our healthcare workers, the Ministry of Health, the real frontline, I know the word frontline is used quite a bit, but the real frontline people are the public health people, the people who go around and do the swabbing and the testing and the contact tracing to make sure that we don't have any outbursts of cases. And those are the real heroes that are doing that, the real people, not the Dr. Cuellar or the Dr. Arriaga and all of the top people who do the ICU cases. It's the common public health nurses and doctors who go around, do the swabbing, do the contact tracing. It's a very tedious work, very important, but very necessary to identify the contacts. And so far, we have had no new cases. We have had 2 clusters, and we kind of figure where they came from. One here in the Belize district, one in the Cayo district, and the isolated one. For example, the one in Key that came from the US. So thankfully, our community spread has not continued. And I am optimistic that that will be the trend forward as long as our borders keep closed for a while more. I do think that the mandatory face mask use in public is wise, and I think we should all bear the inconvenience of using it in the public, and that will even minimize the chance that we would have more cases of spreading. I don't see the need for gloves. I hurriedly say that to gloves in public setting, but definitely a face mask or some kind of face protection for those who are of us go out in the public. The self-distancing should continue. That 6 feet, that patience that we should all exercise, and the good common sense, take care of yourself and take care of your neighbor. You don't need the police to come and rough you up and talk to you, or there's some misunderstanding. I think every Belizean should have the responsibility of taking those measures, so as we, like in the end of May, for example, we can say, okay, we are even 3 steps forward, and we haven't had a new case.
We've seen this, the booth that will be used for testing. Is that a better way to actually conduct the tests, or is it necessary or not necessary?
Definitely, I would advocate for further testing, more testing. If that comes in the form of a booth, if that comes in the form of a drive-through type of thing, if that comes in the form of the community health workers going out and doing active surveillances, going to the different companies, going to the people who have no symptoms, but we definitely would be in a better place if we do more testing. And we hear that all over the world. Everybody's crying for more testing and more testing. And Belize is no different. We need more testing, either being in form of that booth, the drive-thrus, the community health workers going to the different places, the institutions, and testing more people, or just we see checkpoints. We can use these checkpoints to do swabbing, to do testing, but we definitely would want to have more testing to give us a real picture of where the Belize COVID situation is. Unfortunately, when you hear this daily updates, they call it Ask the Experts, it gets confusing, and I would want my colleagues from the Ministry of Health not to find some other way of communicating, because one day you hear we have kits, but we don't have swabs, and we don't have enzymes, and people keep asking, well, what are these things? So they must find a better way of communication, because it does confuses people about the other person when they lay it out like that. Okay? It's like, okay, I have a car, but it doesn't have on wheels. So do I still have a car? And we need to really get the test kits, and we need to ramp it up quite a bit.
Well, William, if I may interject here.
Sure.
This week I saw a report, a readiness report that ranked us at number 5 in the world. It highlighted that we were ready to open up again. No? Readiness to open up for business is what the test was saying. It said that where we were doing very good was in controlling the cases that we had. It said we were managing the imported cases and the community understanding well. It did not measure vulnerable settings or measures in the workplace, this ranking that we saw. But what it did highlight, our weakest score, was in the area of weaknesses in testing and tracing and isolation. Now, we have talked about this disconnect, Doc, in the past between what is being said and what we hear from the people on the ground. For example, there's been several statements made this week by medical officials saying that, look, we're going to be more random testing. We've heard the Prime Minister say that we're testing within the accepted ranges, that he gave a 10% number, but that we would still continue with testing and random testing. And then, of course, there was a statement by the Attorney General in the Senate this week, which suggested that, what are you talking about? You only test when you have symptoms. And he even suggested that that was according to PAHO and WHO standards. So I agree with you, Doc, when you say there's confusion, there's not clarity, and that there needs to be some consistency in the information that we're provided to give us a sense of security, a sense of calm. Because at the outset, you heard we had all these tests, and then, yes, we have them, but we don't have them because they don't come yet, we don't pay for them. So, there's, and in a way, Dr. Goff came on with the Prime Minister, and he was very calm, and he explained to us the full process, and perhaps some transparency in sharing with the Belizean people actually helped in calming the Belizean people and say, okay, now we understand. So I agree with you. The format in which the information is presented perhaps could be worked on, but I'm happy to say that at least we're at a place where, for once, we're positively ranked in the world in spite of all our deficiencies, whether it's a blessing from above or whether I think it's a combination of everything. It's a blessing, and I think, like Doc says, I think our people on the ground have done a very good job. Really, you have to give them kudos with the tracing, etc., etc. So let's hope we've caught everyone, and that this opening up, which we desperately need, will prove us to be relatively free. I must say I was very happy this week as well, William, that even though we've been opening up and relaxing some of our liberties, on the other hand, some other liberties, we became a lot stricter, and I think it was necessary. For example, people going across the borders. I think if we found out that we don't have no cases in Belize, we have to do everything to close down our borders. And I'm glad to see that we're increasing the penalties there. And I'm very happy as well, as Doc mentioned, to see that face masks, which is something that we've been promoting from the get-go. We say, I wear it for you, not for me, kind of thing. So happy to see that.
Let me quickly interject there, Senator. And we need to have a week of training just to give the general public how to use the face mask properly. Because we saw from the Prime Minister him not using the face mask properly. We saw from the other gentleman, Mr. Finnegan, not using face mask properly. And it's not really, it's a very inconvenient thing, especially I understand for non-medical people.
You're not accustomed to it.
I've been using masks for the past 30 years, now using masks 24 hours. It's inconvenient. So for the regular non-medical person, it's a very inconvenient thing. But the Prime Minister gave us one good illustration of how not to use the face mask. Okay? It has to be said that it's not just a putting a face mask, but knowing how to, because it then becomes useless of using a face mask if we don't use it properly. So we do have our Ministry of Health give a few media rounds to show people how to use the face mask properly. Yeah. And again, I kudos to whoever made the decision to mandate that we use that face mask.
Now, before I jump into my giving Jenny an opportunity to speak, I want to raise two things. One, because we're talking so much about testing, the AG accused the media of falsely propagating that testing should be ramped up for public. Now, let's listen first to what he had to say, and then we'll have some comments.
And I heard a couple of them yesterday spoke about testing and testing and testing. And it seems like once you hear a particular thing, you just repeat it. You know, I have an aunt who is COVID-19 in New Jersey. Lives with her husband for about 40 years, my mother's brother. And so he, as the husband, said, well, if my wife is COVID-19 positive, I need to go and get tested. The mighty United States, the mighty state of New Jersey told him, no, sir, don't know everybody get tested like that. You have to display the symptoms before we even test you. So stop sending this foolishness to the public that you must just go out there and just test everybody. That's not how the process works for COVID-19. Those are not the guidelines of PAHO. Those are not the guidelines of the WHO, of nobody. You don't go about randomly testing people for COVID-19. You have to display the symptoms. Stop spreading foolishness.
Now, based on what the AG had to say, and not just that, I also want to say, is it fair to expect as a developing nation, when you have, for example, the US prohibiting the tests to leave the country, or the mask, or so many other things, at this point, to expect that we can have access to the tests that will actually satisfy people in terms of the numbers that we need to ensure that we're testing at this point, when globally there is a serious shortage. Doc, let me start back with you, and then I'll come to you, Jenny.
That's a fair comment, a fair question there, William. I do think, though, that we are far below the number of testing that would provide us with good analysis of where we are with COVID. Okay, we are below 1,000, and we should be much more than that. So perhaps we can't reach the magical correct number, but we can come close to it. We have had, and we have to look around the globe. We just can't be relying on perhaps the US, which is the worst example to rely on, I think. But we can look at South Korea, Singapore, and those people have the test kits that we could use. Now, let me hurry say something there, because you know that we are doing testing through a special PCR machine, but
what's a PCR machine?
That's the machine that's at Central Lab that does the actual testing. It's a protein chain reaction machine that isolates the genetic material of the virus.
Okay.
Okay, so you do a swab, they take out, they separate with two different chemical reactions. They separate the genetic material from the virus, and that is how you identify that the virus is present. But we could, it's maybe, I don't know if it's too late, but we've had situations where we have countries importing directly from South Korea, from China. One of the big problems that the US made, that they did not accept Chinese and South Korean testing kits, because you know how the US go. If you don't come from there, it's no good. But that is a misunderstanding. And we, going back to your original question, we can come close to the amount of testing we need.
I think you know that there's no fixed and fast rule for anything in COVID. Every country is unique. But what we have seen, that the countries that have been very successful have deployed the strategy of test, test, test. And I think where the confusion came about was that we were told we had all these tests. And so the obvious question is, if we had so many thousands of tests, why were we only seeing reports of using 600 and then 700 and then 800 and now 1,000? And I think if we had been honest with the people in the beginning, perhaps there would not have been this frenzy. Not to say that the protocol of test, test, test is not to be deployed, because we still maintain it's the cheapest way that we know how to keep our economy rolling. For example, if we miss one person out there that is asymptomatic and begins to spread this thing, we shut down our whole economy again. You know what the cost of that is? So the most efficient and effective way for us to stay ahead of this pandemic is to test. So whatever the reasons we did not test in the past, I must say, I'm very happy to see that we're going to be expanding our testing now. It seems that we have more tests coming into the country, and that we'll be deploying a strategy of more random testing like Doc suggested, because that is the best practice.
And my question then is, how do you decide who to test? Because obviously if some people are asymptomatic, do you wait for someone to have some kind of a cold?
No, that's why we call it random, William. It's a random
But
test.
how do you decide on that? How do you decide on that randomness? You call in people and say, okay, based on our database.
Let's, for example, at Channel 5, we have 20 employees. So we just want to pick 8 randomly. That's an example. If we go to BTL and they have 400 employees, we test 150 randomly. We go by alphabetical order or one male, one female, etc. Or we come to medical and we test the nurses. Or we go to market and anybody we have any stall there, we test them. That's the randomness of it. We could use the checkpoints, for example, to every 5th vehicle we say, okay, we test you. Or every 10 vehicles. So that's the randomness of it. And
but can you make it mandatory or should it be voluntary? Because some people may not want to be tested. And as
it should be mandatory.
Okay.
But we have to tell the AG, make it stick in a lane. Okay? Make it get better advice.
Seems like once you hear about
Can you see how he talked on the radio to all of us? Then we need to answer him back the same way. Stick in your lane, Mibal, and get your proper information about what we are talking about testing. Nobody, they hype up nothing. The media isn't hyping up anything. Okay? I'm very conscious of our limitations about testing, but we need to work towards it. We need to work towards to getting more testing.
Some people are saying in the absence of a vaccine, actually the more people who get the disease and recover, you can then have greater confidence to actually reopen your economy and perhaps your country. But the antibodies aspect, let's dig a little deeper there. Mark and Jenny, if you allow me, and Fernando to just dig a little bit deeper into that and what that means.
Sure.
Okay. Let me start by the easier one first. Vaccine. Forget it. We don't get to a vaccine right now, William.
Yes.
The world might get a vaccine by the end of the year, which is in December, early January, according to what I'm hearing. You hear different reports, but the one of the man I mostly used to listen to Dr. Fauci, whether the big advisor to President Trump, he is suggesting that the earliest we're getting in December or January. That's the one that would say that's when a vaccine becomes available to the world. Mm-hmm. Then, to make it come available to Belize, where our small economy, we poor, we don't got the money for bid out the other countries, we can take 1 year after for get vaccines. So we dey look at vaccines of mid-21 or end of the 21 in 2021. So let's put that vaccine part aside. Antibodies now are what your body creates when you get in contact with a certain germ. Either that germ be one bacteria, one virus, one fungus. So when you get in contact with one virus, like the COVID virus, your body naturally makes these proteins, which are called antibodies, that would give you defense against catching it later on. So there are tests now being developed to measure these antibodies. Remember, this is a new virus, so pretty much nobody in the world had antibodies against COVID-19. We're just starting to make it. Our bodies are just starting to make it. So by testing the antibodies later on, when the kits become available in the next few months, that will be earlier. Then we can hopefully get it soon, perhaps in the next 3 to 6 months. And then we can test the population and see how much indeed of us have been exposed to the virus.
Now,
is that clear enough, William?
Because it's such a novel, yes, it's very clear. Because it's such a novel infection, and there's also talk that you can get it a second time. And how will antibodies or the monitoring of antibodies be useful?
Well, you see, that's the problem, William. We don't know. We really cannot answer that question if you can get it a second or third time. However, if we go along what other diseases or how other diseases behave, once you get it and you develop antibodies, it's very unlikely for you to get it again. So if we were to use that example generally, then we would say that more than likely you will not be able to get COVID-19 again based on our experience in other diseases. But we don't know yet. We don't have the data yet. Remember, we're just 3 or 4 months into this thing since January.
Yeah.
So that all of that data we are all trying to pursue to answer that specific question.
Now, let me jump to Jenny, because this conversation about testing and whether we should do more or whether we can afford more creates anxiety for people, because that's a part of the uncertainty. Now, mandating the use of face masks is something that you want to encourage people to do. But how do you get people to do that, especially when to the minds of a lot of people, we've dodged a bullet. We've not been affected. You don't see massive deaths. You don't see massive number of cases. How do you get people to take it seriously and to focus on what they can do to ensure that we don't have the kind of disaster that you see in other places?
Well, one of the things that I think for me was disturbing, the new essay that came out, it says that if you don't wear your mask, you're going to jail or pay. There's a penalty.
Yeah.
There's a financial penalty, and there is an incarceration penalty if you don't wear a mask.
Yeah.
We're handing out any masks now, but we are punish people for not putting on a mask. I think it now becomes incumbent on the Ministry of Health to do exactly what they did. You know, when they had those children come on and they're showing you how to wash your hands, the little kids. So all the adults also learn from how to wash your hands. They need to do what Doc said, come out there now and show people how to use the mask. And not just show them the mask so you have to go buy. Show them how they could use a t-shirt. Show them how they could use other things to protect themselves. And do it in a way that is respectful so that people want to do it. I think a big part of the problem is the disrespectful way in which we're being talked down to. So if we want people to internalize this and do it because I don't want to hurt somebody, so I want to hurt myself, you've got to talk to us respectfully and explain to us why this is important. Doc, you just did a good explanation of why it's important to wear the mask. They need to keep that message over and over again to people in a respectful manner.
Behavior change is hard, and if you don't have a campaign to support it, then people are more reluctant to adopt that behavior because they feel as if though you're treating me as a child instead of making it a choice that I participate in. And I think that's very important.
Like I see people, they have the mask, right? And you go to the market and they have the mask around their face, but it's pulled down. Or when they're going to talk, they pull the mask down to talk. We have to explain to them why it's important to talk with the mask on your face. We've got to explain to folks.
Yeah.
People I don't think they understand. They pull the mask down to talk. They pull the mask down because, yes, it's uncomfortable having that over your face while you're talking, while you're trying to breathe. But you've got to explain to folks why it's important to keep the mask on. Somehow we talk and spit, and that it's the liquid that can pass on the COVID. Explain all of this to people. You at the health department need to have a campaign, just like you did the HIV, just like you do with others. Do a campaign where you put something out there so people see and they internalize it and they understand why it's important for them to do it.
All right, thank you very much, Jenny. What I'll do now is segue into the restart of the economy, which has been something that people have been crying for, because basically, we cannot sustain it for a prolonged period of time. What I want to ask Mark now, as Senator for the private sector, is as a result of the changes that you have, there's a increase in the cost of doing business. You now should provide, and some businesses are doing it, and they see it as a part of the cost that they have to absorb, where you have a sink for you to wash your hand, you have soap, you have so many other things. From the private sector perspective, how do you get everybody to buy into that, to understand that it is a necessary part that businesses can ensure as a way forward in terms of restarting the business?
Well, William, for some businesses it would be easier than others. For example, in my business, sanitation was already key in our processes, in the way we operated every day. So we had some sanitary measures in place already. What we've done, and I must commend my staff for this, is that they immediately, from this thing started almost, they started putting out sanitizers on their own, and they started the policy where you had to have a mask to come in because they didn't want to be exposed to this thing. So we started a rule: we would serve you through the window. If you didn't have a mask, we would insist that for you to be served inside, you had to have a mask. We put that in place long time. So for some businesses, it came easier. And to be honest with you, our customers understood and complied. They complied with the 6-foot distancing issue, no problem. William, the reopening of the economy, I still think that the majority of us have not really understood how difficult a time we're going to be going through. I heard the Prime Minister on his presentation. He was very honest, and he said, look, he says this will be for a long, long, long time. Long 3 times, and the Prime Minister is very versed in the use of the English language. And when he said long, 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 I said, oh my God. Anyhow, right now in
that Creole long.
long time, long. So we're there for a long, long, long while. And I agree with what Doc has said about the vaccines, because there's going to be, even though what we hear from many different sectors as to when a vaccine will be available, it's all speculation. But Doc's point was that, look, even after it's made, the vaccine is made available or has been discovered, it's going to take a long time to come to us, a third world country. But the point is this, that as far as the economy, it had to be reopened because we have 130,000 persons either unemployed or desperately in need of some form of assistance or food assistance. Those are the numbers that were reported to us. Many of those persons have still not received aid. Of the 82,000 plus that may have applied, and I understand that that program has been closed, they applied for unemployment, only $3.4 million or some 28,500 persons, when last I listened to this report, had received direct deposits or ATM cards. So there's still, maybe 1/3 of the people that applied. So there's still a lot of strife. There's still a lot of need in the economy. Yes, we had to open up. But while we're opening up incrementally, I have not heard a plan. I have not heard people come out and say, look, this is how we intend to get the economy vibrant again. I've heard the Prime Minister say, well, we're still waiting on loans from the IFIs. I've heard the Prime Minister say, we're in bad shape, when asked for the first time by a reporter if there was going to be any stimulus, and the question was directed at the tourism industry. The Prime Minister did not discard it, but he said, look, we ourselves are in need of help.
Let me
make a promise as stimulus.
Let me ask you a quick question, because
Yes.
I'm glad you brought up the tourism sector, because I think there are two sides or two halves of our economy. We're talking right now about opening our local or national economy, because we're not necessarily, while the borders are not closed to cargo and to exporting and all of that, I understand that when it comes, because we were so heavily dependent on tourism, for example, even if we were to open up everything back for tourism, people would not necessarily feel comfortable, because we have to be talking about confidence that people can travel to your country, and if there's a crisis, that your medical sector would be able to manage it, or all of those things are a part of it. So
Yeah.
we're talking
Well,
largely about the national economy first, right?
Well, we can separate them. Listen, there are several things that you said just now that I can comment on. One, the opening or the easing of the reopening of economies has been directly related to what the belief is that your health sector could observe, the shocks that your health sector could observe. Because you don't want to reach a stage where your health sector is overburdened. Yeah. Or we can't deal with it. One, I was very happy, I must say, when I heard the Prime Minister said that, tourism will not be open, external tourism will not be open until we had a reliable rapid test, because that is crucial. If we're going through this pain, we don't want people to be bringing it again. So that was a good move. Even though hotels have been open, now getting back to the local economy, and a lot of other businesses have been open, we now need to start hearing the conversation is how do we put these people to good use, and how do we grow even, our local economy in a way where we can begin to carry some of these bills. Remember, the government's revenue has fallen to 25% of what it was, and we have big outlays all over the place. There are two things I want to highlight here when we start talking about planning, and what I have not heard, William. I don't recall if I had mentioned the labor productivity report. I think I did.
Yes, you did.
Where we did so poorly in labor productivity. This was a report done by the World Bank, I believe, and the government of Belize, where we ranked so low in productivity in agriculture, in services, and something else. But it said low labor productivity in Belize has fallen over the past decade. So we have that, right? Agriculture and services, or labor productivity was very low. Put that and combine it with a test that the chamber, a survey that the chamber had done in 2018, which was a capacity utilization survey. And that survey, when we did it, showed that 43% of our businesses were not operating at full capacity. Okay, so we had a lot of capacity in the businesses to grow. We had space to grow, and when we surveyed large businesses as far as capacity utilization, only 27% of them said they were operating at full capacity, and 73% of them said they were operating below capacity. Now, this is when the economy was supposedly moving at full steam. Today, those numbers, I'm sure, are quite different. I continue to get very concerned because I've not heard the conversation. And yes, there's a lot going on, but we have to have that conversation at a national level, in a sectorial setting, and even at an individual setting for individual businesses. I keep coming back and saying, how do we get people to increase their employees, the number of employees? How do we become more productive? Because remember, I go back to that 130,000 persons, and the last number I hear, and this was from a presentation that the Prime Minister made, when he said how much people are receiving aid and how much people had applied for aid. We have 130,000 people. Stop and think about that. Stop and think about that. When our economy was supposedly doing the best it was ever doing, according to some people, I don't know, I don't subscribe to that, but we had 19 or 20,000 people that are unemployed. Now we have 130,000 people that need help. How do we bring those people back in? Because if this is going to be, like Doc said, for a long, long, long time, how are we going to survive?
Let me say something here, Senator. One of the things I want to always, when I participate in this conversation, is to stress that COVID has unmasked all our deficiencies. Unmasked big time all our. I can speak from the health center to an T. I can say that to an T. I could start from now to tonight to tell you that one, and I will say it first, then I will ask other things where not the enemy lane and such. But one, we need to have leadership in health. We need to have a minister of health that has a medical background at least. Okay? We need for our technocrats, we need for our CEO or DHS to be able to stand up to the politicians and tell them what are the best medical advice. Too much time I see my colleagues bowing down to the politicians. We need to revamp our health system. It's fragile. In any stand up on 3 leg, it is stand up on 2 leg. Okay, so we need a comprehensive review. And there have been tested, there have been studies, multi-million-dollar studies to look at our health system, but because of politics, it has not been implemented. Regionalization and all of this sort. That's one. It has, all of this has
Before you move on, Fernando, I want to ask something though. In fairness, isn't this same unmasking of the inefficiencies a global kind of phenom that you've seen for larger economies and smaller economies?
I would say partially yes, but they have places like Germany. I mean, they're bigger economies, of course, but we must could do better. And we never need $1 billion to fix this healthcare system. We just need sensible people with a little bit of money, and you're much improved.
Our institutions have been weakened many times deliberately so by the politicians. I want to say that not because we're better off than a lot of the countries around us, not mean to say that, you understand me? We know that we have so much room to grow. There are other best practices in the world that we could be putting to use. For example, I was reading a report from Transparency International, and they said it is estimated that up to a quarter of the value of governments in spending are lost to corruption. What has Portugal done? Portugal, for example, has put a new online portal that allows everyone to track public spending. So you could see where the money is going at a time like this. That would allay some of the fears, tell people the truth. Look, this is what I have coming in. This is how I'm spending what we have. Honduras, right next to us, has an integrity pact that is legally binding between government and the private sector and civil society that monitors government purchasing. These are things that lend to people's confidence. And we have many, many other examples where weaknesses in institutions and this lack of clear and consistent policy has hurt us. We have seen recently, if we're to be open and honest, the CEO in the Ministry of Agriculture resigned lately because of what we believe to be a difference in regards to policy and policy decisions that were taken. It is certainly what we've been tongue crying about for the last 8 years that we've been in the Senate is, look, I mean, it's our money. We're paying all these taxes. We're paying for this huge government. We're paying for all the inefficiencies. We're paying for all the corruption. Let me break it down to you. To drive an economy, William, one of the key things to drive an economy is cheap energy. Okay? Let us just focus on that one thing. For us to be more competitive in selling our grain abroad, right? We use a lot of fuel. For us to be competitive in the delivery and transportation industry, we use a lot of fuel, right? And even they start talking about electricity, and we own the electricity company. Earlier, we mentioned that we need to have more industries, more production, so we could start to hire these 100,000+ people that need help. Well, let's look at just the energy costs. And our cost of energy directly impacts our competitiveness and the cost of production. And let's look at how much we pay for electricity and how much we pay for fuel and why, right? So if you're going to have there's no magic bullet, but if you're going to have a serious conversation, all of us, including the private sector, including individuals, especially the government, consumes 1/3 of all the goods and services that we produce in taxes. We have to become efficient.
One of the main things is the selection of our leaders, no? We need, as a country, as people of Belize, to hopefully figure a way how we could better elect or select our leaders. I like the whistleblower fund. I like to develop a fund so that we can reduce corruption big time, and that would be one of the ways that we can do things properly. I want to insist that people from the business put more pressure on the leaders, on the governments and the opposition, because they have a lot of power to pressure the leaders for them to do the right things. If they would say, for example, we'll have a strike and we won't open any business for a day, even though we're going to lose X, but we want this, whatever he said about the fuel, the efficiency, the power, things like that could change our country. We in the medical field need to put more voice. We need to grow more either testosterone or estrogen so that we can pressure our leaders in government for us to have a better Ministry of Health.
I am concerned about the really small business people, the ones that cut up fruit to feed their kids or make dinner and serve at school, out there.
Tacos vendors.
Yes, these folks now are not working, and I don't know if they even qualify for the unemployment benefit. I hear them on the radio calling in and saying when we're going to open up, understand my family hungry, things like that. And I don't know if anyone is listening to those business people, because I'm telling you, I keep saying I'm worried about some of the consequences, and let me just say it out loud. I am very concerned about suicide. I really am, because when people get frustrated enough, and if some of these people have some pre-existing conditions like depression, or they have anxiety problems before this came up, this now exacerbated the worse. So where will this lead? And now we're adding 130 more days onto the desperation that you can feel that's happening out there,
Obviously, this kind of engagement, and when it's smack in your face and you've had these states of emergencies, now the second one for 60 days, you can't escape this reality. But people also feel overwhelmed. How do you manage the mental anxiety that comes from knowing that this is something that is not going away, but you also feel helpless?
I'm telling you, I hear it on the radio. I hear people calling in. You can hear the desperation in some of these folks, And I think it hasn't sunk in yet that we now have 30 more days.
60.
And what?
60.
Well, that's not entirely accurate. We
have up to 60 days.
We have the legal framework where we can take it to 60 if we need to. But I think we'll be guided along the way, and I'm hopefully by brilliant medical minds as to when we can continue to relax more. But our ability to refrain from having any new cases will determine how long the state of emergency employs, Jenny. That is my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You always say this every time we met, Mark. You say a thing. You say, they need to open up and get more people to come in and sit and talk to them, to make some of these decisions, like people from the humanities, people from different segments, so we have a more logical opening.
Inclusiveness, yeah.
I'm really, really concerned, and let me bring up a really good point. I'm really concerned about when this really hits home people, what is going to mean. Because it's sinking in, it's just sinking into me.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, put up with 30 more days of this. I'm not sure if the people in that group up on top understand mental fatigue, the isolation, the things that are coming up for people. I'm getting more and more calls from people who the depression is coming up, all their anxieties are coming up, And what do you tell them? Because they have no control. The way people have no control, it leads to desperation. And so basically what I want to say is that if you have no control over something, really and truly, the only thing you can do is figure out how to keep yourself calm, and then you try to apply for all these things that are out there. Because I don't know anything else I can say. Everything's been taken away from us, really and truly.
William, Jenny raises a very good point. Look, remember 40% of our businesses are informal, Remember, we have a great portion of our economy that's informal. And who's taking care of these people? The little vendors, this, that, So that if we don't find a way to apply rules to them and to keep us safe, because that's first. The new norm is that we have to have regulations in place, regulations that people abide to keep us safe.
All right, on that point, we're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we'll pick it up right there and talk about how do we fill the gaps that tourism has left for us? How do we start talking about increasing our revenue and also reducing our debt? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages.
Dutch Lady, we give you delicious and nutritious milk. We make sure our milk is filled with essential nutrients, calcium, vitamins, and protein. Dutch Lady gives everyone in the family a strong start to the day. Keep your family healthy and happy. Dutch Lady, building strong families since 1871.
Save. The credit union way.
Member owners are encouraged to save regularly, borrow wisely, and repay promptly.
No use keeping the money in your pocket. Soon as you turn wrong, you know you ain't got it. So as money goes from hand to hand, give your cash to the umbrella man. I telling you, save. The credit union way. Save. It will make you rich someday.
Uh-oh, what are those?
Germs!
That's right, they're germs, and they love to spread.
Uh-oh!
And how do they spread?
Hands!
Germs can spread everywhere from hands, and from hands they move on to food, toys, other hands, and faces.
Yuck!
Germs make people sick. And that's why it's very important to wash hands.
Hooray!
It's important to wash your hands, so follow these steps to do it right.
1.
Turn on the water and wet your hands.
2.
Use soap to lather your hands and scrub.
3.
Rinse your hands completely.
4.
Now that your hands are clean, use a paper towel to touch the handle and turn off the water.
5.
Dry your hands with a paper towel.
Hooray!
Follow these steps every time and you'll keep germs away. So remember, the best way to fight germs is wash hands.
And welcome back to Uncovering COVID-19 at Channel 5 Special. Of course, we've had a very robust conversation and we want to pick up exactly where we left before the break. We're talking about the gaps created by tourism, the fall off in tourism, and what can become the new revenue earners, and also ways on which we can better manage our debt and even reduce it. So I'll go to Mark first for that one, and I'll just ask you to comment on just one particular concern in this area. So you can do that section for me, please, Mark.
You're not playing fair, William, because either of those topics could take up 2 days, like Doc had said. William, we have to go back to some fundamentals. We have to realize that we've lost a major economic leg in this country. Perhaps we will never get it back the way we had it. We don't know. There's so much uncertainty. What we do know is that we have a government that still continues to consume a large portion of our GDP. Perhaps even more, perhaps even less. We don't know. We have not seen the numbers. We have not seen a budget that is realistic. The government has not indicated to us what its priorities are going to be during this period. Is it going to be only health, only security? What is it going to be? So we need to know. We need to have an idea. The government, I think, has a responsibility to Parliament to come out and say, look, these are our revenues, these are our priorities this year for the next, at least come up with a short-term budget for the next 6 months so the people can understand what it is that the government's priorities are. As far as debt management, to be honest with you, I think that most countries around the world, including Belize, and most people around the world, have taken the position that, look, we realize that you are under a lot of duress and we will be lenient, and perhaps there may even be some concessions being given, or some, I'm hoping that we could see even some debt write-offs. I heard the interview for the Prime Minister of Barbados on CNN the other day, and certainly she was inferring that, the Caribbean countries as a grouping are looking to see if they can access some sort of loan reprieve and certainly concessionary funding and financing, because every country really, irrespective of how well or how poorly you run your economy, they were facing unprecedented and challenging times. But going forward, what we need to do, William, is we need to find a way to earn enough money to keep us viable as a country, to keep our basic services and needs paid for. And in that regard, I think that we definitely need to start focusing on how do we increase production, productivity, competitivity in this. It's the new norm. It's a new norm, and that conversation should have started to happen, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But certainly it needs to be ramped up now. We're in unprecedented times. We have before us unprecedented opportunities to correct all the mistakes that we've made in the past, but it's going to need leadership. I think Doc was talking about leadership and the importance of leadership. We need to have leadership committed and with a vision. And we need to have these people in leadership acknowledge and recognize that for us to survive, or viability as a country, we need to address some of the fundamentals that we've ignored for too long. For example, William, we've been living on borrowed money every year for the last 10 years, and even before that, to a lesser extent. But recently, every year, we borrow more and borrow more and borrow more and borrow more and borrow more. That is not sustainable. Yes, we will have to borrow in this type of emergency. Everybody will. right? But we have a limited amount of space to do that. And I really suspect, that when the international financial institutions look at you, yes, they might look at us in some instances as a charity case. But when it comes to risk assessment, countries like Belize are high risk because we already owe so much. We already owe so much. Let that sink in. So we don't have a lot of space for borrowing. If you go to the bank will say, what's your capacity to earn? Belize, what's your capacity to earn? We just looked at the Statistical Institute's report that came out. What did it show? Yes, our exports improved slightly for 1 month, but for the quarter, it still declined compared to the quarter last year, right?
Yeah.
And our imports still went up. So there's still that gap. Even now, we still import more than we export. That needs to change. So we need to look at all these things, and I don't see it happening yet. I don't see the plan, or at least if there's a plan, I don't know how inclusive it is and how much we're doing to expose the people. Where's the vision? Come to your people and say, look, this is the plan. This we have to all work towards now as a country, because this is the way we have survived this thing. I don't see that.
All right. Thank you very much, Mark. I want to jump right into the medical research aspect of what we see happening. We know as a developing country that we suffer tremendously from the lack of data, and scientific research requires data. Is there any way for us to turn this situation into a catalyst for us to start looking at medical research as a country? Fernando?
Yeah, most definitely. The short answer to that question is, of course, no. This, I think, one of the silver lining in all of this is that hopefully we identify our shortcomings and address it for the future. No research. We have zero research in Belize. Zero medical research. Zero. Okay. We supposed to have what is called a national data, but what does the data serve if it's not analyzed properly? So even before COVID, I'm not seeing the type of analysis of data, of medical data, and guiding us that way. Third, it definitely, again, draw away the mask over the healthcare system. It needs a real revamping, and everybody want to say for them picnic better. So I would suspect the teachers would say the education system needs to be improved. The police would say the security system. But anybody would agree, and this has shown that the health part is very important. If we don't have health, we don't have good teachers, we don't have good policemen, and that kind of thing. So health will be one of the priorities I think government or future government should tackle it big time. And on the last note I want to leave, because I have to leave now, is that I need to remind the Belizean public that all is not done as yet. Thankfully, we have done well so far. We can call this a little lull, one chill out time, but we cannot stop doing the things that we're doing. We cannot stop washing our hands. We cannot stop using distancing. We cannot stop doing all of the things. We need to continue, and thankfully, we now have to use a mask in public. So please, Belizeans, keep up what we do so far. I'm very happy that we've done all of this, and we need to continue as strong as we did before, okay, for at least another month or two, so that we can be in a better position then.
Thank you very much, Fernando. Now, before we end this segment, Jenny, obviously one of the things is the social aspect of everything that we see happening. Crawford like take bad thing make laugh. Obviously, at a time when social media is full of memes and things of that nature, Why is that such a popular thing? Do we just need to laugh and forget at this point, where you can see what is a parafete in terms of social distancing or a sweetheart pass?
I think there are two things going on, William. One, when we are stressed out, one of the things that we do, we go run, we exercise, we find laughter, because laughter lightens the spirit. It also takes down the cortisol. So laughter is good, and we're a people. We're very humorous, and we take everything and make a laugh out of it. Unfortunately, sometimes some of the things we take to make a laugh out of are mean, and sometimes mean. Some of the things are pretty mean, and so while we laugh at ourselves, if we could make this stuff, make it funny, but avoid being mean when we do it. That would not be a bad thing at all. I kind of wanted to just, if you don't mind, I need to finish saying something about this whole thing about what we talked about earlier, that informal economy, because I'm very concerned about it, really, really deeply concerned about it, because a lot of folks out there, it's an informal economy. I work with a lot of those children where their parents are doing things that are not exactly the legal. Some of the ladies have to, they take nearly $5 and gamble and make $15 to feed their children. Other things like that. There's no way to do that. So how are those children eating? And school's not open. So when they would go to school and get a meal at school, they're not getting that meal at school. That's a huge concern that I think about what's happening with these children. Here in our neighborhood, what we have been doing, we have a woman who collects, and she is able to provide a bag or something for people who need help here in Belmopan, right? And I hope that people are out of themselves and try to do stuff like this where they are. If it's just something, a small something out of your little that you have, it's to help somebody else. It really helps you as a person when you're able to help someone else. We're living in some extraordinary times. That is what we do with it. It's how we face it. Yes, it's a lot of loss of control, but there are things that you're able to control. And you're able to control how you take care of yourself in this situation that we're in.
All right. Thank you very much, Jenny. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, it will be for our parting shots. Don't go anywhere. Uncovering COVID-19, a Channel 5 special, continues after these messages.
Over 100 years of service excellence in Belize, the Belize Bank Limited recognizes the importance of leading the way as we enter into this fast-growing technological world. Our Belize Bank mobile banking app virtually places a number of banking capabilities in the palm of our customers' hands, anytime, anywhere, through the use of their Android or iOS devices. Bank, delivering a convenient and enhanced banking experience to meet the demands of our customers' digital lifestyle. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
At Dutch Lady, we give you delicious and nutritious milk. We make sure our milk is filled with essential nutrients, calcium, vitamins, and protein. Dutch Lady gives everyone in the family a strong start to the day. Keep your family healthy and happy. Dutch Lady, building strong families since 1871.
Does the open road on a street cruiser sound like fun to you? What about riding through some dirt roads on a brand new Leafan trail bike? Perhaps zipping through the city is more your vibe. Whatever Leafan fits your lifestyle best, we've got it. Visit us or any of our distributors nationwide, or go online to see our wide range of Leafan motorcycles and parts. Leafan, old, affordable, reliable.
Welcome back to the close of tonight's show on covering COVID-19 at Channel 5 Special. Before we do that, 41% of the people that watched last week's episode were men. What were the issues that resonated with them? Here are two comments. Sergio Garcia, and I'm reading these verbatim, household food security has to be prioritized as we go forward. What will be in place to reach the needy? That's one of the comments. The second comment is from Max Bob. Will someone please enlighten my ignorance here? The politicians say that over $13 million has been spent on relief to the people. That amount of people so far is, let's round it off to about 14,000 people. I have a problem with that amount. This country has, let's say, 500,000 people. Out of that, maybe 150,000 makes up the workforce. If you give each person $5,000 each, brothers and sisters, that won't make $13 million. Am I missing something here? You do the math. I'm not good at math. But maybe Mark can help us out. Any response to those comments?
Well, I'd like to say that we had a poverty rate in this country of north of 40%, probably closer to 50%, even before COVID. God only knows what it is today. So we agree that there are many households that are struggling and that they desperately need help. We agree that there are many people whose savings may have been exhausted, and unless we can get some aid to them, they will be in their straits. They'll be having major issues, social issues, livelihood issues. We believe that the response to that, yes, in the short term, has to be government aid, government intervention, but the focus has to be in bringing these people's lives and livelihoods back to some state, whatever that state can be, of normalcy. We believe that there has been a lot lacking in the transparency and the speed at which a lot of these programs are how they're being operated. For example, I heard on the radio this week, one of the SARS was saying that, look, we weren't able to distribute to 20,000 more or less of these people that applied because their information was lacking, and if we stopped to look at those, at regularizing the data that was needed from them, something to the effect that it would affect how we reacted to the ones that did comply. And I said, my goodness, that should be a priority of government. Look how much public service we have. Why couldn't we be doing both at the same time? These are the things that disturb me. That you're saying because, you know, for make you continue to help people that don't have all the accurate information, you can't do it because, like, you don't have enough people. And you'd have to take people from doing this stuff to do that stuff. That, to me, don't make no sense. Right? Because we should have deployed the resources and applied the urgency needed to get people their help as soon as possible. People have that hope. They can't go work. You don't have jobs. Then give them the help that you said that you'll give them and make it a priority. And deploy every resource of the public service to help them find the people, fix the problems, and get the help to them, man. That, to me, was a lame excuse.
Is that your parting shot?
No, that's not my parting shot. You just warm me up.
So give me a parting shot, Mark.
William, we have a lot of problems in front of us, and it's going to be overwhelming in many instances. But we have a lot of opportunities as well. The opportunities before us is that, look, here's an opportunity for us to change the ways we prioritize, to change the way we manage, to change the way we budget. We have a lot of opportunity to change, and it starts from the top to the bottom. And all I'm going to say is that for us to be competitive as a country, cheap energy drives an economy. It affects our competitiveness. So I throw that out for our leaders. You want us to ramp up production, to ramp up exports? Let us have a cheap energy policy immediately. That's one. At a local level, and we need to have a plan as how we're going to get these 100,000 plus people help and back into the formal economy. Two, at the personal level, I think we've heard the message repeated now all over the place. We need to consume more of what we produce and produce more of what we consume. And we have to have major efforts to provide the environment where we can begin to add more value to the products that we produce and export more of what we produce. We need to drive exports full-fledged because we've lost that flow of foreign exchange that we got from tourism. So I would like to say to the Belizean people, the Belizean workers, the Belizean families this week, what value have you added to the Belizean competitive chain this week? And if you haven't, think about doing something next week. This is going to be an ongoing message from me. What have you produced? How productive have you been? Even if you're at home, try and spend some time thinking. Our brain is our greatest asset, William. And
Sure.
now we have to be innovative. So spend some time thinking. Let's really see this Belizean potential unleashed. Spend some time thinking about how can I produce and how can I be more productive this week. Thank you, William.
Thank you too, Mark. Jenny, your parting shot?
Adding on to what Mark just said, instead of just watching movies or sitting down and just watching fun stuff, there are master classes that are free on Facebook. In fact, I was looking at one yesterday where this guy was teaching people in his neighborhood in Compton. Compton was one of the worst neighborhoods in LA. And he's got boxes, and he's showing people how to make compost. He's teaching people who watch his master class how to grow things in a box, in a bucket, grow food. I mean, can you imagine if you could make your own? And that's another thing. Our people have to learn to eat vegetables. We really have to learn to eat vegetables. And you grow those stuff right there in your yard. So I want to encourage people to look at some of these master classes, not just the growing food. They also have recipes. They teach you how to cooking. There's all kinds of things for free that you can be looking at. Secondly, what I think I want to remind people, there are children in your homes. Please, again, very little children get stressed. Please be careful of what you're saying in front of the children. I know you're stressed, and honestly, when people get stressed, if there's potential for domestic violence, I want to call out to women to find ways to get help under these conditions, because there's going to be even more stress. So you really have to take care of yourselves. Okay, but I want you to really be careful about talking about and saying in front of the children. Talk to them in language they can understand. Explain to them what is happening. In language they can understand, and in a way that they can internalize, and be very, very active active in teaching them again, reminding them how to wash their little hands, getting their little masks, showing them how to wear it. So if you have to take them someplace, they understand why it's important to have that mask on and to wear it. So talking to the children, get out of yourselves. Find ways to help people around you. There are lots of elderly people who live alone in this country. Should we start trying to find ways to maybe go shopping for them, go buy stuff for them that they need. Reach out just to go talk to them so that they're not sitting in there not being able to have someone to talk to. You can talk to them from their window, but reach out and talk to folks. All right? And again, taking care of your own self, doing some exercise, doing the things I asked about, being grateful. I don't care how hard it is out there, you can be grateful. So find 3 things to be grateful for every day until the time we see folks. Thanks, William.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. And we're shining a light on COVID kindness for tonight, on ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and we want to introduce you to Hilberto Clark of Crispy Bites from the Corozal district. He has set up a free pantry outside his business for his community. Congratulations, blessings. Thank you for joining us. Happy Labor Day to everyone. And do care about the people in your environment and do the best that you can with what you have. I am William Neal, reminding you to stay safe and wash your hands, and now wear your mask. Until next time, take care of yourselves.
Uncovering COVID-19 Pandemic, a Channel 5 special, was brought to you by the Belize Bank Limited, Santiago Castillo Limited, Universal Hardware, and Holy Redeemer Credit Union.